in terms of like the average sort of Joe, he says makes like 25 grand a year. Like, is there
Mhm.
anything they can do in terms of like tax relief, like even just basic things you can do?
Well,
Or
I'm sure you all know that. I'm sure you paying the pensions at your workplace. That's the
Mhm.
first place that you start, because that comes out of your pay before you pay your tax. And there's a big topic actually at the moment that there's a wild lot of people leaving their pensions at work. No, they're actually going, "Oh, I don't want to pay into my pension anymore. I want the extra 200 quid in my pocket at the end of the month,"
Yeah.
which I understand given the circumstances
Mm.
nowadays that that's the case.
yeah,
But the matter of fact is that you're you're taking money away from yourself when you're 55 in order to be able to go and buy a pair of Jordans at the weekend. And
Yeah.
you know what, it is as simple as that. So that's the main thing. Paying into your pension with work's a really big topic. And obviously whenever people earn more than 50 grand a year, they get more tax relief out of using that. But for the average Joe, you know, at the end of the day, it depends where you're trying to go with your life. But my view is, if you are getting married or you are saving for a house, then that's the first thing that you should be working towards. Because there's no point in trying to invest all your money for the long term, but then whopping it back out. Then they try and use it for a house deposit or use it for your wedding. I was speaking at an event the other night arranged by a company called Smart Mortgages for the Northwest for first time buyers, and they were talking about the do's and don'ts when it comes to buying your first home.
Mm.
And sometimes people would come to me in the office and say, "I make 30 grand a year. I have 5 grand or 10 grand saved up. I'm going to buy a house in 2 years. Should I invest this money for 2 years?" Which is a huge no-no, because you're putting your money at risk then.
Yeah.
And whenever you invest money for short periods of time, the likelihood of losing money is quite high.
yeah,
Yeah.
But the longer you stretch it out, the better the likelihood gets, the better the probability gets. And that's the misconception. You know, it's not a matter of how much you can grow your money by in terms of percentage returns or growth. It's how much money you're putting into them. And this is what I always say, that if you have £1,000 and you make 10% of it, that's £100.
Mhm.
But if you have £100 and try and double it, that's 100%. So if you just work on accumulating
Yeah.
money in these type of things, like ISAs is the most popular thing for people who have no sort of experience, or no, like, they're not running around with a great deal of money behind them. And
Yeah.
that's a lot of people that I deal with are paying in the ISAs on a monthly basis.
that's like the S&P 500 and all, isn't it? Or?
Similar, we don't use the S&P 500. We use our own funds. So we've funds that are managed by people.
Right.
Yes, the S&P is like a passive fund, which is good for beginners too if they want to do it themselves.
Yeah,
But that is sort of the most common way for people to start doing this. Obviously, ISAs are tax free. Any growth that you get on them is tax free. So if you have £1,000 that turns into 2,000 over 10 years, you don't pay any tax on it. But whenever you get to a certain size of cash, for example, if you have it in the bank, the interest that it generates can be taxed if it earns more than a certain amount of interest, and that's why they use these products. But for the average Joe, anyway, using things like ISAs is always going to be the first port of call, and making sure that they're using their pension at work. And look, the first 5 years, whenever you're sort of trying to accumulate a safety net of some sort, it just takes a bit of time and discipline. Even if somebody's putting away a couple £100 a month, over a year, £2,400 over 10 years is 24 grand, and over 10 years it could have a chance to grow in a decent way.
Yeah.
And so, like, once you have that sort of money just sitting off sides behind you, that's a very comfortable place to be.
yeah,
Because a lot of the issues that our generation have is, yes, you can go and buy a house, and yes, you get married, but and yes, you have a car, but if you have nothing behind you, that if something really bad happens to your house or something bad happens to your car, then you don't have the money to sort it out immediately, and then it ends up costing you more money then. So that's my personal goal for people in our generation here, is they try and get as many people doing something like this as possible for their own benefit. And it doesn't have to be a huge amount of money. It doesn't have to be a lifelong commitment. It's just to get you to a point where everybody's raising the bar of their standard of living, because the standard of living's getting worse for a lot of people. So if we don't do anything about it, then what do you expect? You can't expect things to get better if you're not willing to make something happen. So